because you will be writing some real unit tests. Why don't you make this a real one? Okay, let's say you create a buy button for each car, and you put each button you create in a dictionary from car to button to track which button is for which car. It's a common thing you will do. Now let's say the button can be highlighted. You want to track if this has been done also. You ran out of room in your dictionary, so either you need to create a random class of okay. Why can't you add highlighted to your button? Because you say the button can be highlighted, so wouldn't that belong in the button? Isn't that how you would do it in JavaScript? How would you do that in JavaScript? Well, wouldn't the button have a class in C#? So you have host init. RAM size is, I guess this is the size of this shared file. Oh yeah, because you're mapping that much. Read and write, map shared. So shouldn't you f-truncate the file first, or is that done automatically for SSM? I don't know. Read and write, map shared. Okay. Of course. Often you will handle everything in the controller. How would you do that in JavaScript though? Where would the state for whether things are highlighted be in your hypothetical JavaScript program? Okay, well it's like one truncate call away. Wait, hold up. RAM. So wait, why are mapping manually anyway? Host and init. Wouldn't LGMP handle that map? Seems like that would be LGMP's responsibility. Maybe not. I don't know. Host init. Or maybe the shared memory is a detail, like not a detail of the library. The library is agnostic to the shared memory. You create an object to track the button, the car, and the highlight mode. By highlight, you don't mean the feature of the button. You mean something more complex like async effect that is running. You create an array of objects to track the button, the car, and the highlight mode. So you would make things is like my car is car 0. Button is some, query selector of button. And mode is highlighted. And there's no mode there. It's just 0 base then. So you do something like this in JavaScript. Because in the context of looking at the RAM, it either comes from Windows driver or, oh, okay. I got a GNIF, so it's not actually dev SHM. That makes sense. So why can't you do this in C#? Okay, hold on. What would you call this variable? I call it things, but what would you call it? Start there. post add queue. So you got no clue what 0 and 10 are. These are not self-documenting. So, and it's also, if you have two integer parameters right next to each other, it's very easy to swap them. Unless it's something like x and y for a coordinate system. It's very easy to swap these. So maybe use a struct to name the parameters or something. I'm not sure. Car buy buttons. Car buy buttons. Okay. So in C# land, we can make a struct called a car buy button, and it's got a car, and it's got a public button widget thing button, and it's got a mode, and you got, you know, defaults and highlighted as modes, you know, and then you make your car buy buttons as new, you know, car buy button lists, and, you know, initialize it. It's not necessary, but this isn't what you were talking about before where you're modifying the car, you're extending the car with other properties. So, like, anytime you have an object in JavaScript and it has a common structure, like car button mode, car button mode, car button mode, then you probably want to make a struct or a class in C#. Otherwise, you get into like dynamically typed programming, and C# isn't the best at that, and it's also very unusual to see that in C# code, and it doesn't have good support for it. So, do I know any company that makes Azerty for RealForce? I don't know. I have no idea. I don't shop for Azerty. Can't help you with that. It's extended info unrelated to the car itself. Yeah, but it's not. You're not extending the car, and you're not extending the button. But it's like state of your application, state of your view, I guess. It's its own thing, so it can be its own thing. Just like it is in JavaScript, its own thing. So it's just JavaScript lets you make these ad hoc, but in C# you should make a struct. Because so the reason I asked you to give this a name is so that I can give the class a name. Because usually the name you would name your variable is very similar to the name of the class. At least for simple examples like this. So you already, this seems like a decent name for what this contains. You think it's more of a car class than a car that has yeah. You called it a car card, which is that's like the box containing all the car details usually, not like here you would possibly add like the label, widget, and, you know, other stuff for the UI, possibly, maybe. Not just a button. You don't have just a button you know, you also have other widgets related to the button, so you might have that stuff as well. But and I would call that full thing a card. But if it's just a button, I think button makes sense. So you said 0 is the queue ID. So queue, when you say queue, is that kind of like a channel? It's like a, so queue ID would be if both the host and the guest say 0, then they can talk to each other. If they say 1, then they talk to each other. But if the host says 0 and the guest says 1, then they're not talking about the same queue, right? That's what you mean by queue ID. And then 10 is the queue length. Why is this? Does the host decide the queue? Let's